Hello everyone, welcome to the live stream. Today we're talking about Ecamm Live, one of my favorite tools, favorite pieces of software, and actually largely the majority of the content that we've had on this channel for quite some time. It is the software that I use to make all of my videos in one take with no edits. It's also what I use for live streaming, as I'm doing right now, and it's also what I use to run all of my online workshops, Zoom calls, webinars, things like that as well. So last week I ran a workshop over on the Ecamm Live YouTube channel called No Editing Required. It was a 3-day workshop. You can still find that over on the ECAM channel. I'll drop a link to that in the description after. I don't think I actually put it in yet. But that was, as I say, 3 days. And then we had a bonus session on the Friday, which was on Zoom, which was just a sort of open Q&A. But what happened was, going through all of the questions, I undoubtedly missed a few of them as I was going through the actual streams on each of the days. So I thought today what I'd do is actually just come back and go and address some of those questions that I'd missed, so that we can sort of direct people here if they want to get to those questions. That said, if you've got any questions about Ecamm Live or live production or anything to do with studios or whatever, then feel free to drop them in the chat as well, and I'll get to them today too. So first of all, let me just quickly, for those that are not familiar already, introduce what Ecamm Live is. It is live production software for the Mac. So this is what I'm seeing right now. And we can see my scene here. This is the sort of output that is ordinarily going out. And then we have these two main components, which is scenes. So this is a particular scene. If I switch over to a different scene now, you'll see how it will change, and it should be showing something on the screen. And I can choose what that is actually going to change, or what that is going to display, whether it's my primary display, secondary display, or whatever. So here I'm now sharing something that is on my desktop, which is a website. So all of this is just to say that this is a scene, and this is a scene as well. So these are these different sort of views that you've got. Now the actual things within the scene are known as overlays. So within this scene I have got a camera overlay, which is me just here. If I just unlock the scene for a second, we've got my camera there, and then we've got the screen share. So those are two different overlays. We've also got some things going on in the background here as well. So if I just toggle off some of these overlays, there is this little swirls at the top there. There is this sort of animation that's going on over the top, and then there is a background image. So in terms of the sort of layers that are built up within this scene, we've got this background setup, and then we've got the camera, and then we've got a screen share. So those are the elements that are in this particular scene. And what you'll notice is that the camera and the screen share are just in the current scene, whereas if we look at the background, that is set to show in background. And what that means is it's going to be in the background of every scene. So if I switch back to my other scene, you'll see that all that is changing is just that camera, but the background remains the same. And that's what allows us to have this sort of cohesive look across all of our different scenes. So if I switch to a couple of other different camera angles, oh, it's a bit too zoomed in, that one. Switch to a couple of other different camera angles, you can see how this is looking. And we've got this, as I say, consistent look and feel to it. So the point is, though, that I can do live switching. And just going back to that other slightly less zoomed out camera, the thing that I'm using to switch between all of these scenes are these devices on my desk, or just one of them in particular. And as I press these buttons, it's switching back and forth between the different cameras like this, or switching to the screen share just like this. I'm currently still in this live demo mode, so let me come out of that and switch back again so you can see a bit easily. This is the device that I'm using to switch back and forth. And you can bring up on-screen graphics and all of these other things. So the whole point of the video that we had last week, or sorry, the workshop that we had last week, was to introduce this concept of live production, and crucially live to tape recording, which enables you to make videos in one take with no edits, hence the name of the workshop, No Editing Required. And that's how I make all of my videos. I just hit the record button, and just as now, I'm just sort of talking and switching scenes. If you've got all of your screen shares set up in advance, got your different camera angles, then it's easy to just hit the record button and say, hello, today I'm going to talk about whatever it is, this feature in Safari, and I'm going to go over to Safari. I'm going to do my little demo and show you what I need to show you. And then we can come back to this screen, and then I can switch over to here and have a little chat into this camera and switch back again, bring up any content that I want on screen, and then hit the end recording button. And just like that, we've got a fully produced recording with, you know, these different cuts between different cameras, different elements that you're bringing on screen, but it's all done with no edits. And that's the benefit of Ecamm Live. It allows you to do all of this, you know, with no edits, just in a completely fluid motion once you get the hang of having set things up and just get used to pressing a few buttons and build that muscle memory. Initially, there might be a little bit of a learning curve with it. Well, hopefully that's what the workshop was for last week, and I've got an entire training coming up next week about it as well. But once you do get into the habit of it, it does become second nature, and the buttons become like an extension of you. So the controls become an extension of you, where you don't necessarily think like, okay, I want to go and do my screen share. Let me just look down here. Let me find it. Or like the Zoom thing of let me click around trying to find the thing. I can just instinctively know where the button is on my Stream Deck, so that without looking, if I want to share what's on my screen up there, I'm going to press this button and it's going to take me to that. If I want to go to the camera over here without looking, I can just press a button and it will take me to that. I'm just sort of feeling down where these buttons are, and I instinctively know that the button in the bottom corner is going to take me back to this camera. So that's the whole thing that we're talking about. And it was a real revelation to me to be able to do this, whenever it was 4 years ago or more, when I started creating videos in this way, because it suddenly freed me from all of the friction that was holding me back from before. So apart from the actual just pure time saving of being able to just get something done in one take and it's done without having to think about multiple takes, multiple edits, and all of these kind of things, and adding on graphics onto the screen afterwards, you can just get it all prepped, do it in one go. And so there's that. And so there is just an intrinsic amount of time saved by not having to have any post-processing where you're taking things into another piece of software or anything like that. But there's another element to this, specifically for people who've got brains like mine that work in the slightly odd way that mine works as well, which is there is this missed opportunity that we can potentially have if there is just too much friction involved in it. So never mind just the actual time saved by not having to do the editing, but there's also this thing with me which would be like, oh, I've got to do the editing. I don't want to do the editing. Maybe there's something else that I can do, that I can procrastinate on and do something different. And so there is this like knock-on time cost of the procrastination cost, or whatever you want to call it, where we just don't get things out because there's too much friction involved in it. So there's that side of it as well. So that's a little brief introduction to why the one-take method is so important and so helpful. So what I'm going to do is I have got a list of questions that were missed from the sessions, and so I'm going to go through and get to those. By the way, just so that you know why questions are missed, and you might hear this, people say this all the time in some of the live streams, and you might wonder what on earth they're going on about. Well, if I just go over to my ECAM, and I'll show you a minute what I see with the comments coming in from YouTube right now. I see the comments appear in this comments window. And as you can see, there's hardly any at the moment in there. And so all I need to do is if I go over to my little comment scene, I can just click on one of these and it's going to come up. By the way, thank you, Coach Deb, for becoming a member. Great to have you on board. And I can go down and just click on these comments. Gary, great to see you as well. Glad you enjoyed the opportunity. And I'm glad you like this time, 10 p.m. I always used to do mine really early for me, 5 a.m. It's actually 9 a.m. for me here. So yeah, I'm glad it works for you, because this is optimum time for me after the school run. But the point is, though, I'm seeing these comments in this window, and so I'm just able to click on them and come on here. Hey, great to see you as well, Mel. Great to see you. The point though is, if this was a really busy chat with lots of messages in, they're just sort of scrolling up, and we had, I forget how many people were on the streams last week on the ECAM channel, but it was a couple of hundred at times, and so there was lots of busy chat going on, and it's easy for me to miss. So what you can do is, if I was to just put a comment in here, I'm just going to type Q:, this is a question. Because what you'll hear people say is, don't forget to start your comment with a Q:. Well, the reason being that, as you can see in here, this comment now is formatted in this way, Q:. But what I'm able to do in ECAM is, if I go up into the search bar here and I just type Q:, like that, it's going to just give me a list of basically all the questions, because it's going to look for just that term Q:. So that's a really great way of filtering out all of the other things here. It's going to just give you only the questions. So the ones that I missed tended to be where somebody had maybe put Q and no colon, or they'd put something else, or they just didn't put it at all. And that's why I didn't get to it, because the chat was moving so quickly at times that I wasn't really keeping up, because I have a habit of waffling on anyway. So I wanted to make sure that I did get to all the questions. And so I went back after the fact and looked at all the chat. So there we go. So there's my excuses out of the way. Hey, great to see you here. Glad you're here. Sorry, the time's clashing, but I'm glad you're finding your way to be here as well. Anyway, so with that said, let me go to start making my way down through some of these questions because, as I say, there were quite a lot that came in. And I'm just going to go through these as a list. I haven't actually particularly sorted them into a major grouping, but thank you very much. You're the one that thanked me in the ECAM group about the Elgato prompter. Great. I'm glad you got it set up. That was one of the really great things, Mark, from the sessions, was just seeing actually people put it into practice. So yeah, it's great to see that you took it and actually did something with it, because that's ultimately the reason for it. So yeah, thanks Mark for taking action, and thanks for posting it in there as well. So there was a question that came up then specifically about this little puzzle piece. So some of these questions might seem sort of random and jumping around because they came at different points in the session. But it was this question: what does this little puzzle piece do in the bottom of the ECAM sound levels window? So I'm going to open that, and it's basically for audio filters. And it was something that's relatively new to ECAM. It was only added in at the last sort of major update, I think. But it allows you to add sort of processing to your audio. Now, I've got to say, I don't actually use this myself for a couple of reasons. First of all, I use the Rodecaster, so that has onboard audio processing anyway. But the other reason is there's no easy way to actually monitor it in real time. And I will just show you exactly why this is a problem. So it's a step in the right direction for audio filters to be added in, but there's a slight issue with it in my view. So if I click on Add New Audio Filter, I can choose what I want to apply that to. So let's say the main mic. And now if I click on Add Plugin, we could add something like a dynamic processor is basically like a compressor. So all of these technically are dynamic processors, because a dynamic processor just changes your the pitch and volume effectively, or just rather affects the pitch and volume. Not the pitch, it affects certain pitches with respect to volume. But anyway, this one is in fact, actually, let me show you this one, because this one is very easy to demonstrate. If I click on this one, high pass filter, what that's going to do is it's going to knock out the lower tones. So you might want one of those if you've got like a low hum in your studio and you want to knock out the drone of some low humming piece of equipment, but crucially below the wavelength of your voice. Then you can toggle this one on. But this is the reason why I don't use these, because right now I'm hearing myself just through my my headphones. I'm just hearing exactly as I sound. If I toggle this on, and let me just adjust it. Okay. The problem is, so the reason why I paused there is I can't hear what you're hearing. I can still hear myself exactly as I was before. But as I adjust this high pass filter, it's going to be basically knocking out some of these lower tones. And at some point, it might even become completely unlistenable to you. But crucially, the point is I can't actually hear what that is doing. So that means that it's very difficult to get this set up and be able to hear what the effect of it is. Let me toggle that off because I don't know how that was sounding, but hopefully you got most of that. The point was this is having an effect, and I wasn't able to monitor it. Now there is an output monitoring in ECAM. So if you go to output and then audio monitor, you can choose to monitor your audio in ECAM like through headphones or your speakers or whatever. The problem with that is, and the reason why I never use this one as well, is actually there's quite a significant delay on that. And so it's kind of off-putting to be able to do it. You can't really do real-time monitoring with that. And I've never actually asked why that is, just that I never personally use it. So those are for audio processing, and so that's what that little icon down there is at the bottom. It's audio filters. Now you could get some of those set up and get them all set up and then use them effectively for things like noise gate, compressor, and all of those kind of advanced audio processing tools. But you'd need to get it set up, and then you would need to know that it was on, knowing that you're not going to be able to have sort of real-time monitoring of that. So yeah, that's what that piece of puzzle was. There was so many questions that were basically iterations of the same thing. One of them was, how do you plug in multiple cameras? Do you need to buy a camera switcher like an A10 Mini or something like that? Another one, do you need to buy a switcher for multiple cameras to plug into your computer? Another one, I've been using this with my A10 switcher. Do I need to use it? Can I use my A10 Mini ISO with ECAM? All of these questions about an external camera switcher come up so often. So what is a camera switcher? Well, essentially, ECAM is a camera switcher, but this that I've got on my desk here is a hardware camera switcher. I'm going to recommend that most people should not be using an external hardware camera switcher with their computer. Now, often what happens is people have been and bought an A10 Mini and an external hardware camera switcher. I can sort of demonstrate it. Now I've actually got my cameras running through the switcher. So basically when I press a button on here, it's going to switch to a different camera. This is going to switch to my top down. So this is the device I'm working with, the Rodecaster. And this allows me to switch between different cameras. I can set up scenes and things in the Rodecaster as well and switch between those. So I could do like a picture-in-picture with my camera and screen share. This is essentially a hardware device that does what ECAM does. ECAM is just so much more, in my view, user-friendly than any camera switcher. If I was going to buy a hardware camera switcher, well, I mean, I obviously have one here, but I mean, if I was going to recommend one to buy, then it would be the Rodecaster Video because it's the most user-friendly that I've seen. People have sent me camera switches for review. I've got about 5 of them that people have sent me saying, you know, can you take a look at this and you know, potentially make a review on it? Well, I only make reviews of things like that I actually like, unless it's something very specific to the channel that I think I've got to make a review on it. But I'm only really taking the time to create a video and share something that I feel is, you know, really valuable to my audience that I want to share. And so all of these hardware camera switches that I've tried, they've always just been too clunky, too over complicated to program them to get things where you want them, unless you're just doing basically camera switching like that, where you just want to say, okay, here's my main camera, here's my second one. And by the way, although I'm doing the camera switching with the Rodecaster Video right now, the actual design of the outside and everything like that, that's still all ECAM itself. But that sort of indicates why camera switchers with ECAM in particular are not necessarily a great match, because you've only ever got one camera feed from the switcher coming into ECAM. So why does that matter? Well, let's say I've got a scene which is like this with my main camera. I've got another scene which is my screen share, and then I want to have another scene which is, let's say, my top-down camera, something like this. So those are 3 clear scenes. Well, imagine if I was taking this through the through the ATEM or whatever camera switcher I've got. At some point, I've got to select what is the input source for the camera. So, for example, if I just go in here, I'm just going to change this one. Now, imagine if I've just got my my ATEM or whatever coming into ECAM, and I switch over to my top-down camera. But then I want to go to that scene, which is me on one side and the screen share on the other. Well, now when I press that button, I'm still stuck on that same camera. So it doesn't really work, does it, to have the, you know, the top-down camera now is that primary camera. And that's why ECAM is, you know, just a better option when, well, first of all, for the design, but it's a better option to have your camera feeds coming in individually so that you don't have to worry about, you know, which camera you've got selected. Because now technically the workflow would be, okay, here is me sharing my top-down shot. Here's me sharing my main shot. Let's say we go back to the top-down. Then I go to the, you know, the screen share in the corner. And now I've suddenly got to change back to my main camera in there using the Rodecaster Video. So that's why that doesn't particularly work in there. So so that's why I don't recommend using an external camera switcher. As I say, I am doing, but it's because I'm doing some other things with ECAM and with Rodecaster Video, and I've done some events where I was using the Rodecaster Video to split video and send it to multiple places. But in general, that's why we say don't use those external switchers with ECAM. So then the other question that came up, which sometimes it's, you know, what I try and do when I make any of my videos or do any of my workshops, I try not to have too much assumed knowledge, but sometimes I do completely, you know, miss certain things that should be obvious to me that I need to mention them and include them. So the question that came up a couple of times was, how do we connect more than one camera to ECAM? Yeah, very great point. There are different ways that you can connect cameras to your computer. So you may well have a webcam, which is basically just USB. If you've got some sort of other camera, like a DSLR camera, a large large camera with a detachable lens, or you've got a mirrorless, which might look the same. Some cameras don't have a USB out. They have an HDMI cable that you can sort of take the feed out from the camera. So in that case, you need something called a capture card. And what a capture card is something that basically takes that HDMI signal and then converts it into a USB. So it's going to present it to your computer as if it was a USB camera. So the popular brand for that is Camlink 4K. By the way, Rode have actually brought out their own HDMI to USB converter. I should mention that this is 1080p rather than 4K, but this is a new thing. So the Camlink 4K from Elgato, and there's a couple on here that are, I'm just looking on Amazon. There's a couple of companies that have bought out their own knockoff Camlink 4K. If somebody's saying, recommending you go and get a Camlink 4K, and you go into Amazon and you see something like this, Camlink 4K, it's not that one. It's not this one. It is the Elgato Camlink 4K, and that is not the one either. It should look like a little dongle, but it's like there are more knockoffs now than the actual real one on there. So I'll get the actual Elgato website up and show you what it looks like. But basically, though, that is the form factor. You've got an HDMI input on one end, and you plug that in from your computer or video source. And then on the other end, you've got a USB-C. And so when you plug that into the computer, your computer is just going to see that as a video source. So it will just show up as a webcam, basically. So that is what the Camlink looks like. So that is the Camlink 4K. So let me just paste that into the chat. So yeah, that's going to make it mean that your camera will show up. Now, you can then, so back to the question of how do you connect multiple cameras? Well, as long as you've got a dock, you can basically have multiple cameras going into that dock. When I say as long as you've got a dock, what I mean is you've probably got limited ports on your Mac. So as long as you've got a dock, or I should say a hub, difference between those that came up during the sessions. What's the difference between a dock and a hub? A hub is basically taking the connection from your computer and expanding that out to multiple of the same kinds of connector. Now, they might look slightly different. So I've got something called the CalDigit Element Hub, and that basically is Thunderbolt 4 into the computer, and then it gives me 4 USB or Thunderbolt type sockets, and then there is 3 that are USB-A, so the older kind of slightly fatter size USB. But you basically, though, a hub is like for like. They're all the same type of connector. A dock, on the other hand, if you think about, I don't know if you remember laptops with the original docking stations where you kind of like push the laptop in with a big clunk. Sometimes they had a big locking mechanism. It was like a big thing that sat on the desk. The point of that was it enabled you to connect all of your different peripherals to the computer, so that then you could just sort of take it out and then you put it in and everything's all connected. So that was, the dock was originally, that sort of analogy. But basically what it still means, though, is that's where you can plug in all different types of peripherals that you might have connected. So it might be you've got Ethernet to connect to a network. You might have monitors connected to the dock as well. You might have audio connected to speakers or things like that. And then you might have still USB or Thunderbolt connections or whatever. But the point is, it's a way to plug in all of those other different things. And then when you just rock up with your computer, drop it down and plug it in, you've got all of your external devices connected. So that's the difference between a dock and a hub. In both cases, though, you want to make sure it is a powered hub so that it can control has enough power for all of those devices. And the question is, what power should it be? Well, the CalDigit Element Hub was, I think it's 50 watts, and the dock that I'm using is 100 watts. But that's when you will see companies saying, our device must be plugged directly into your computer. Like the Elgato Prompter, they will say it's got to be plugged directly into your computer using the cable supplied. And that's because sometimes you might have 2 cable ends that look exactly the same, but actually the specification of the cable and the connector within that is different. And so that's why they Well, there we go. I'm back. That was probably the longest outage I've had. So if you're picking it back up, thank you for being here. Let me see if I can just get back into the live stream backstage. Not sure what happened there. My entire internet just went completely across multiple things. So let's see how we're going. Okay, right. Let me just start some things up. So there we go. I am back, and hopefully in the replay this will just seem really odd because it will just cut out and then it will come straight back on again. So there we go. Where was I up to? I forget now entirely what I was talking about. Yeah, I can't remember where I was up to with that. So let me get back to some of the questions, and to recompose myself, I will get back to some of the questions that we've had coming in here as well. Let's see where we're up to. Where are we now? So here we go. I have three. I've had one for 3 months, and it has worked well for me. I'm using most of the ports, and it's not hot at all. So that was about the CalDigit, I suppose, or the dock. Let's see. I'm glad to see that you've been talking amongst yourselves while I've been off. There's a big long chat thread that. Let me get ahead of myself. Let me get back to where I was up to rather. CalDigit released its TS5, so this is a dock, the Thunderbolt station, is it 5, I think? TS5 and TS4 Plus with more ports, but this 4 is enough for me. Yeah, with the new standards coming out with Thunderbolt, so there's Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4, Thunderbolt 5, and guess what? In a little while there'll be Thunderbolt 6. The point is that all of these manufacturers will obviously bring their things up to the latest specification, but actually, you know, if you've got a Thunderbolt 4 hub and it's working well, there's no need to upgrade if that has got the data transfer speed you're looking for, because the Thunderbolt 4 is just relating to the data transfer. So, for example, my CalDigit Element hub has my 2 Rodecaster channels plugged into it. So there's 2 cables go from the Rodecaster. At the moment, it's got my Rodecaster video going into it. And it's also got 3 Stream Decks. So the Stream Deck Plus and the 2 Stream Deck XLs that are sitting on my desk. So those things are all going into the CalDigit Element hub, and it's a Thunderbolt 4 hub. So, you know, just if they bring out they have actually brought the Element Hub 5 out as well. Is there any need to buy that? Well, not for me, because this is working. So just because they've brought out something new doesn't mean that we've got to all go and upgrade. Also, sometimes the 2 are still available. So I think with the TS5, for example, the TS4 is still available for that. So you could potentially save yourself money, because they tend to drop the price of the previous generation, and then the new one is obviously the new price. So there is that as well. There is a potential option to save a little bit. So the actual hub that I'm using, sorry, the hub that I'm using is the CalDigit Element. I'll just find it for you, because Element 4 is the one that I'm using. As I say, there is a 5 out, but you know, depending on how many things you're connecting, the CalDigit Thunderbolt 4, if it's out, well, actually, there you go. It says currently unavailable, so maybe it is out of stock. I will just drop the link in, and you can find the CalDigit Element 5 from there as well. So this link that I'm dropping is the CalDigit Element 4 hub, and as I say, there is a 5 out as well. So I'll get that one for you as well. Sorry, let me show you what I'm looking at here as well. CalDigit Element 5. In fact, that one might not be on here. The dock that I'm using, though, is a Wavelink, I'm going to say 4-monitor dock. 4-monitor dock. And that is this. I've actually got 2 of these. So this one is the one that I was using before. It's the Wavelink. And so if you want to have 2 extra monitors, and by the way, why am I using this one? Well, this has something built in called display link technology, and it's this little icon you want to look for. So computers will have a maximum number of monitors that can be connected. And in fact, with my computer, technically it's 2 external monitors. Well, I've got more monitors than that. So that is the display link technology that allows you to do that. Now, if you're buying the Elgato Prompter, that actually has display link built into it. That's how Elgato can know that you are going to be able to power it, even if you're already up to your maximum number of monitors. So I'm going to put this one here. The Wavelink 2 monitor dock, drop that in there. And then the one that I switched to is because I wanted to have more, monitors. It is, it's kind of like this one. This might not be the exact one, but it is, mine's basically the same as this, but it's just a different color. So this one, you can see we've got 4 monitor sockets on the back there. It might look like 8, but basically you're choosing between either, for the video stream A, B, C, and D, you're choosing between either HDMI or display port, not to be confused with display link. But that is the dock that I'm using essentially right now. So I basically have one of these, which is where my monitors are connected, and other things like Ethernet and a couple of USB peripherals. And then I have the CalDigit Element Hub, which is for some of those other things as well. So this is Wave Link for monitor dock. There we go. So I just dropped a link to that one in. So so that is to answer the question. That's what I'm using right now. The important thing about both of those, though, is they have a a power brick with them. So if we look at this one, you can see how it's got a 100-watt power, and the CalDigit Element, I think, is 40 or 60 watt. I can't remember exactly. So that's the thing. It's got plenty of power to power these peripherals that, if they indeed need power. So that's where we're up to with that. Let me just come back to these questions. What is the benefit of using the Elgato Prompter over a regular monitor if you're not using it as a traditional teleprompter? It's so that I can still look into the lens. So like right now, I can read your comment, but I'm looking into the lens because your comment is showing up in the teleprompter. So if I go back to this view, I've got my output from Ecamm in there. So when I'm streaming or when I'm running an event or when I'm producing something, I'm basically sitting here looking forward into the teleprompter there. You can see the top of it. And so the actual monitor of the teleprompter is flat, but then it's reflecting off the sort of glass that's at 45 degrees. And it means that I'm looking at the monitor, but I'm also looking directly into the lens there. So that's how it looks like. I'm looking down the lens, but I'm kind of looking at myself now, which, yeah, that is a bit weird. Certainly, you have to get used to it. I have to get used to effectively looking at myself for long periods of time if I'm recording or doing something like this. But the reason why that's, it's worth, in my case, worth putting up with that trauma is that it means I can, when I go over to a screen like this, I can clearly see what you're seeing. So it means that I have got the confidence to know that what's going out is what needs to be shown on screen, or what you're seeing. Whereas what I used to do before having a teleprompter is I would go over to a screen share like this, I would come back to this one, and then I'd go back over to my screen share and I'd start chatting about things, and then somebody would just shout like, "Oh, you're not sharing your screen." That still happens now, by the way, but just not as frequently. So it helps with that. But then the other thing, though, is when I'm not using this for like streaming, if I'm on a Zoom call, then it means that I can put the Zoom participant in the teleprompter. And so when I'm chatting to somebody on Zoom, we've got that eye contact because it looks like I'm looking through the lens to them, just as right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, it looks like I'm looking at you because I'm looking at me in front of the lens. So so there's that. Obviously, you can manage without a teleprompter. I will say that it's one of those things that when you get it, you think, "Oh yeah, this is kind of a revelation." And I think that was a lot of. The Elgato Prompter is great, but a lot of the hype about it was because it was the first time people had used just any teleprompter and had this idea of being able to see the other person that they're speaking to. So that, to answer your question, is why I have a teleprompter. What I'm actually looking at is not technically an Elgato Prompter. So if I just come over to this screen over here. This is slightly. Whoop, let me turn off the face tracking. I don't want it to track me. There is the monitor. That is a Lilliput A12-inch monitor, and it's going into this. I don't know if you can see the name of it there. I look and see, or I look and see, if it makes more sense. That's the way that it is spelt, and that is like a 17-inch sorry, 15-inch teleprompter technically, but the like diagonal, but the screen there is 12.5. So 12.5-inch Lilliput screen. Now I do have the Elgato prompter that at the moment is over there. Now the reason why I don't use that as my main teleprompter is because I've been using a teleprompter for years, and this one is only 9-inch screen, whereas this one is, as I say, 12.5. And what that means is it's a much more usable size. I mean, you can see this is a 14-inch MacBook Pro, and so you can see that the screen above it is kind of similar in size. You know, it's not too much smaller, so it means it's a real usable screen size for me to to be able to be on sort of day in, day out. That said, the teleprompter, the Elgato prompter, is still great. It's plug and play as well, so you don't have to think you've got to buy a prompter and then buy a screen and then maybe buy a dock to have them work if you're up to the limit on the number of screens you've got. Whereas by the Elgato prompter, it's all in one screen and the prompter, obviously, and then you just plug it in and it's good to go. So it is a really great plug and play solution. But I just got so used to this larger prompter that I couldn't go down to the 9-inch of the Elgato prompter. But I use it, as I say, for some other content and just another camera angle over here. So I'm waiting for them to bring out the Elgato Prompter XL. That's what I'm hoping for, like a 12-inch, 14-inch Elgato prompter. That would be great. Just coming back over to the questions. Let's see. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Mark. You were talking about the Gen 5 as in the CalDigit Element 5. Yeah, you definitely won't. And then the rest are about my screen dropping out, I think. Let's see. Oh, where are we? Rode snuck that one in. Oh yeah, that was the Rode Camlink. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. The Rode HDMI to USB-C converter. Yeah, I've got quite a lot of shorts to make. By the way, while we're talking about Rode, I don't know if you've seen these great microphones. So I've got the Rode wireless mics. I've got the Rode Interview Pro, which is a handheld mic that works with their wireless systems as well. But they bought out these, which is the Rode Wireless Micro. And what I really love about them is just the really small form factor. So they are clip-on. They're about, I don't know, half the size of the other Rode wireless mics. They just sort of clip on and obviously. And then they come with this little dongle here, which plugs into a USB like on the bottom of your phone. So you can just plug this onto your bottom of your phone, and then these two will just pair with your phone. So it's a really lightweight solution. I love the fact that they fit into this small case, which is it's bigger than an AirPods case, but not too much. Like about 50% bigger or something. So it's a really great portable set of wireless mics. And then they did an update to the firmware where actually you don't even need the wireless receiver now. You can just pair them directly with your phone. So that's even better. Now you've got great quality Rode wireless mics that you can pin on. They've got a magnet, so you can just like attach it on like that. Yeah, they're really great. I've got a video to make about these as well. It's on my list. But then recently they announced this, which is the Rode Wireless Micro receiver. Now, the reason why I'm kind of blown away by this is because basically this is a Rode wireless receiver. So I think it's slightly smaller than other Rode wireless receivers that you might have seen. But this basically, you can now connect these ones, which were previously either paired directly with your phone or they were connected using the little USB-C dongle. Well, now we've got this that looks a little bit more like the original Rode wireless receivers. But the point about this is we've got a 3.5 mil jack out that can plug into your camera. So now you can pair these smaller form factor microphones with this receiver, and then those go into your camera. The reason that I was kind of blown away by this is because bear in mind, like how many people must have seen this product, gone away, made their informed judgment as to whether it was right for them, and then gone out and bought it. You've made that assumption, that decision based on the value proposition of the product at the time. Well, what Rode have done is said, like, basically, if you've bought one of these, send them an email, or there's a form to go through. I'll find the link and drop it in, and they will just send you out one of these, like, free of charge. You just cover the shipping. And I just thought it's kind of unheard of, isn't it? You hear of people making upgrades to products and things, but to just say we've just added a whole new level of functionality to your product, and at no extra charge apart from covering like a nominal shipping fee, we're going to send you like this whole extra new device, which adds this new layer of functionality to an existing device. I've got a video to make about this as well, but it was it just really surprised me when they said that there were, you know, this thing was coming. I just assumed that it was going to be an add-on that you would have to pay for to get for your device. I think that's pretty cool, honestly. Anyway, I digress. I don't know why I started talking about that. Oh, we were talking about, yeah, the Rode HDMI converter. So this was one of those other products that they've released recently. So yeah, kind of cool. You run a single camera show, Mark, but would like to add more. Yeah, so absolutely. It's just taking them into the dock, either through USB or USB capture cards or whatever. Let's see where we're up to. You've had one for 3 months, so that's the CalDigit. Yeah, so I have the CalDigit Element Hub, but the dock I use is the Wavelink dock, and that's because it allows me to connect multiple monitors, whereas the CalDigit technically doesn't have the display link technology that allows you to connect, you know, 4 or 5 or more monitors. Let's see. All that cool tech, and you still have to rely on the internet feed. Well, absolutely, absolutely. That is the thing. We're at the mercy of internet. It's kind of weird. I don't know what happened earlier. It must have just been some sort of general outage because everything else was fine, but it dropped out across multiple things that I had. So let me see where I'm up to. Trying to get back. He's back. Just catching up with the chat. You were answering the question. Oh, and this is where I said I forgot what I was talking about. You were talking about connecting multiple cameras using the CamLink capture card. Absolutely. So that was where we got up to. I just mentioned that, didn't I? So yeah, it was how do people connect multiple cameras into their computer? Basically, just cameras, multiple CamLinks potentially, and then bring those into the computer. There is another option, which is something made by the same people who make the ATEM. So the ATEM is one of these external hardware camera switches. That company is called Blackmagic. And sorry for taking so long to circle back to the question that came up just before we dropped out. The company that makes the ATEM is called Blackmagic. They make something called a DeckLink Quad 4K. And this is essentially a card, and I'll show you what it looks like. A card that enables you to plug in QuadLink 4K, Blackmagic DeckLink Quad 4K. I'm talking and typing, and I've just typed DeckLink QuadLink DeckLink Quad 4K. This is the Blackmagic design. That's the one there. Right, so this is a card. As you can see, it's not in an enclosure, so it's just a board here. But you can plug in 4 HDMI signals there from you know, either, I say cameras, I mean you could have like an external computer coming in over HDMI through that as well, and you know, to be capturing the screen of another device. But the point about this is you then just have one single connection into the computer. And that can be good for reducing the overhead on your computer. If you've got lots of USB capture devices plugged in, then that can you know, take up processing power or whatever. Whereas this, in theory, should be a little bit lighter. It's still presenting all 4 video feeds though, so it's not like the ATEM where basically you've got one cable coming in and only showing one at the same time. This would enable you to connect 4 cameras with one single Thunderbolt connection into your computer, and then they would just all show up in ECAM as individual computers. You do then need to buy some sort of enclosure that this is going to go into. So there are some external enclosures that you can get that would house that. So that's $605, and then the enclosure for it. Let's see, what would the, I forget the name, Sonnet Echo is a good one. Sonnet Echo. Let's see. So it would be something like this. So the Sonnet Echo Express SE1 Thunderbolt 3 expansion. So this would enable you to connect, in theory, this particular box. You can see how you can put the boards in it there. It says, does it say this cannot be shipped to Thailand, which is where I am? But in theory, you can get one of these external boxes, and you basically just put that card from Blackmagic in there and then connect that to your computer. It's not, although it's like, you know, dealing with circuit boards and enclosures, it's not, you know, it's pretty plug and play. So I'll just drop the link to that in as well. But if you are going to be having like, you know, 4 or more cameras, then this would be the way to go better than having like multiple cam links. That said, if you have got a low powered computer, then, or an underpowered computer, that is another reason why potentially somebody might use like an 8M or an external switcher, and then just be conscious of the way they're setting up scenes, because it does enable you to connect multiple cameras, but then not just have them going all through into the computer as individual feeds. So let me come back to some more questions. Another one from Mark. You got Pro Mouse, but it doesn't seem to show up in my broadcast, but I definitely see it on my monitors. Yeah, the reason for that is what you're likely doing is sharing a specific application in Ecamm. So I can demonstrate this by just coming over to this screen share. Now this screen share, you can see my Pro Mouse. So what Mark's asking about is Pro Mouse. That's this tool that allows us to zoom in and do some other things, like we can spotlight on the screen and just sort of highlight things, or do both of those at the same time. So that particular tool that I'm using is called Pro Mouse. I'll just drop the link into that as well in case anyone's interested. So that's called Pro Mouse. Now, I can obviously see that on my screen right now. But if I go over to Ecamm, and then I'll just share my Ecamm screen, what you'll notice is, although I'm technically sharing Safari in here, what I'm actually sharing is, if I click on that, I'm actually sharing one of my displays. If I do go and specifically share Safari instead, so let me just come to here and say Safari, and I'll go to Amazon. So now I'm technically sharing that Safari window, but what you'll see is if I go back over to Safari and actually click in there, you're just seeing the mouse pointer, and you're not seeing Pro Mouse, even though I see it on my monitor. And that's because, just like that, so you're just seeing the mouse pointer. And that's because in Ecamm, if you tell it to share a specific application, it's going to ignore all of the other applications, and that includes Pro Mouse, because Pro Mouse is just an application. So the way to get it to show is, rather than share the entire desktop, rather than share a specific application, is share the entire desktop. Now, what you might need to do then is crop down onto a particular area of it. So if you take a look at my screen here, this is the screen that I'm sharing, and actually that Safari window that you were looking at is just up here. It's just up in the top corner. So what I've done then in Ecamm is I've got a screen share set up like this. I'm just going to do it in here. If I click on this plus, it's going to add a screen share. It's going to share my default monitor. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go and share my 4th display here. And now you can see it's sharing everything. This is actually a Keynote live video, but don't worry about that. And then we've got this thing that I actually want to share, which is in the top corner. Now, if you hold down the Option key, you can drag in from the side like this, and drag up to the top there like that. And then we can crop that out, crop the menu bar out, and now we can zoom in. So now I'm sharing my my screen. I'm sharing Safari, but I'm actually technically sharing the desktop. So if I come out of demo mode and now go back over to Safari, you can see that my my Pro Mouse is showing up just as it was before. It's a really common thing, that is, because you can see it, so you'd wonder why it's not coming through. It's such a real common one, that is, for people to wonder. So let's see. You have an Insta360 camera. Can I still use a prompter, or will I need a DS? No, the prompter actually, the Elgato prompter in particular, it's got different kinds of hoods on the back of it. I've got mine on a rolling thing, but I've kind of semi-wired it in at the moment, so I can't necessarily show you easily, but I can. Actually, I suppose I can, because I can use this camera. Let me just switch over my mics a minute. I'll go over to this mic. And now I will switch over to this camera. What you can see is on the back of the teleprompter, there is this kind of like hood on the back of it. So it's rather than being completely built in at the moment, let me just stick this over here for a second. If I lift this up, actually the camera that I've got in there at the moment is a Sony ZV-1, but you can see it's just mounted onto that plate. And then the plate is height adjustable, so you can slide that up and down. So even if you'd got like I'm not sure the Insta360, I'm not sure if that's kind of like tall in the same way that the Osmo Pocket 3 is that I've got. I can't just remember offhand, but you can certainly like adjust the height of this plate on the back, and then you can adjust the forward and backward position. But you can see how this can see like right through the teleprompter now. So that's my camera mounted inside it, and then as I mentioned, there's just like this this hood on the top that I can just drop down, and usually I have a little clip just to stop the dust getting in at the back that sort of clips it all down at the bottom. But that's how the camera is, and it's that you can see the lens just through inside there. So you could certainly have the Insta360 mounted in there. Just note that if that is doing panning and tilting and things like that, as my the one that I'm using here, swap mics, which is this. Obviously, if this is sort of panning and tilting, then you just need to be conscious of that. Either fix it or know that if it pans too far to the side, then you're going to see the side of the prompter. But absolutely, it should work in there. The other thing that you will find actually with the Insta360 is that when you plug it into to the computer, you will also get a window like this in ECAM. So this is for the Osmo Pocket, and this is actually to control the gimbal. So what I mean by that is you can see that I've got the Insta360 here. If I just press this to this way, you can see how it's actually turning. Just look at the camera head at the same time. As I move this, I can actually pan and tilt round to adjust the position of it. So it's really great for a sort of second or third camera as well, because you can control where the camera is looking, and you can link that to scenes. I've got another couple of PTZ cameras. So the one that is over on this side is the OBSBot Tiny 2, and that's the same. I can control that, but also you can have like presets for different positions in the OBSBot Tiny 2 or the Insta360 or the Osmo Pocket. And then you can have those linked to scenes. What I mean by that, just to sort of show you, is right now I'm in this scene, and what you can see is that this scene is basically showing, let me just get some of these things out of the way now. Tiny 2, not that one, it's this one. Let me just make sure I've only got the things on screen that I need. Right now I'm in this scene, and it's looking at this camera, obviously. And this camera, if we just go and check which one it is, this is camera D. Well, camera D is down here, and you can see it says OBSBot Tiny 2 preset 1, and you can change that to up to 10 presets. So what you can do then is, let's say I want to create another preset for this camera. So at the moment we're on preset 1 for the Tiny 2. What I can do is I can move the position of the camera. So let's say I want to move it over here, maybe look at something up here, maybe zoom in or something like that. You can sort of put this wherever you want it. As you can see, still in the middle of building out my studio. But you can put this wherever you want it. And then you can say, let's make this preset number 2, and we will click on save. So now we've got a view from that camera that is preset 2. So what we can do then is, if I then come back to these scenes, this at the moment is this front right scene, but I can create another preset, camera E, which we can say is, let's say, oops, not camera E, I'll create a new one, add placeholder camera, and this one we're going to make this placeholder camera, we'll say that this is going to be the OBSBot Tiny 2 preset number 2. So we've now got this new preset. Now you'll notice that they both look the same. That's because the camera can only physically be looking in one direction at once. But just note that this one says preset 1 and this one says preset 2. Now what we can do is we can take our scene and duplicate it. So we've now got another scene here. And if I change this to from camera D to camera F, is the one with that other preset, what's happening is, as I switch back and forward between those two scenes, it's actually moving the OBSBot camera for me. So that transition there, all I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, switch to this scene, and then it's saying, okay, that's preset position 2, so it's going to do that transition automatically for you. So that's just a really nice little feature that you've basically kind of got integrated control into ECAM for the PTZ controls for any PTZ, well, more or less any PTZ camera that you connect. So with your Insta360, with its PTZ controls, am I even got the right one? Is the Insta360 the one that does the PTZ, or is it the one with the fisheye? maybe I've been talking about the wrong one. But anyway, if you've got something that will do the PTZ, then that is a great solution for it. Let's go back. I might have been just saying something that's completely non-relevant to that computer. So let's see where we're up to. Can you share, if you recall, what the clock with the temperature display is above the teleprompter? Do you know what? I think I've got a link to that. It's funnily enough, it's something that I get asked about, like, out of all of my setup, most. And see, I have got a link to it. I've got a feeling the link might even be in all of my videos. Let's just have a quick look. It might be down in the bottom of the description. It might well have changed. It is there. Let's see if this link is still working. Oh, it's not. I will find it. Need to update that link then, I guess. Large digital clock. Here we go. Bargain, $24. This is the one. There we go. I've just dropped it into the chat. It's this thing. So yeah, it's the large clock. I just have it directly above my my desk. Technically, you know, it's there's a clock on the computer, isn't there? But the text is, you know, getting a bit small in the dock, and so it's quite useful to, in the menu bar rather, so it's quite useful to just have a big clock right above the ceiling. It's also good to know the temperature. This is the new studio, so I'm figuring out how long it takes to bring it down to temperature. But I walked in yesterday and it was 36 degrees centigrade. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but yeah, a little bit warm for recording until the aircon had kicked in. So that's the clock. Does the Rode HDMI to USB converter replace the Ecamm Link? Well, the thing about it is, and I don't quite know what the decision-making process was on this, because it's 1080p. So that's one distinct difference. This is, if you're only recording in 4K, then the Rode is an equivalent of a Ecamm Link 4K effectively, except that it's not 4K, it's 1080p. So that's the Rode HDMI to USB-C converter. I actually am using this right now. I mentioned that I'd got my videos cameras all going through Rodecaster Video, but how, you know, using a switcher with ECAM is not the best idea, because otherwise you're losing the switching capabilities of ECAM. Well, what the Rodecaster Video does have is you can direct your video out from the Rodecaster. There's two separate HDMI outs for the Rodecaster Video. So let's say if you've got, you know, you want to have a separate monitor that's displaying, you know, the live feed, the preview feed, and all the different cameras connected just to the Rodecaster, that can be sent to one of those monitors. But you could also select like the program feed to go out. Well, what Rode did was also allowed you to select any individual cameras that you've got connected, and you can send those out to one of those two HDMI outputs. So actually what's going on with my setup at the moment is I've got four cameras that are coming into the Rodecaster Video. But then I'm kind of using the pass-through feature to send the HDMI from my main camera out through one of those HDMIs. It is then going into this, and that is then going into ECAM. That's fine for me because I am just capturing and recording in 1080p. So I'm cool with that. But that is just something to note, that it has the limitation of being 1080p only. But yeah, it is a capture card. By the way, another just little public service announcement. This one has a converter, and then the cable, the USB-C cable, is sort of integrated into it. So, you know, you can plug it in, and there's some flex there. What I still see people doing is with their Ecamm Link 4Ks, which are kind of quite bulky as a connector, and it's got the USB socket is sort of integrated onto that. You don't really want to be plugging that directly into either your computer or into the dock or the hub, because there's going to be a lot of strain on the connector of the hub or the computer or whatever, just by the size of the dongle. So you will find that in the Ecamm Link box, there is like a little extension thing, extension cable, like maybe a few inches long. just plug that into the plug the cam link into that, and then plug that into the computer, just so it doesn't overly strain the connector. But as I say, this one, it's just sort of integrated into it. Let's see where we're up to. That little portable camera, so the portable camera that I'm using is the Osmo Pocket. I absolutely love this this camera. It was, I guess has it been out a couple of years now, or maybe a couple of years in October, but it's really, really good. This is what I'm using, like, if I'm, filming the family. I don't do much of my own content on this, but it's so useful. It's called the Osmo Pocket, but it is really compact. I mean, this is on like a ridiculously large tripod at the moment, just so it sits on my desk, but the actual device itself is that big. And there's this weird thing as well that I always find. You watch review videos on YouTube, or you'll see the pictures on the website or wherever it is, or on Amazon, and it's only when you get things in your hand that you actually have a real feel for exactly how big they are. I don't know what it is, but I can never really fully judge it until I actually get things in my own hand. This is something that I really didn't realize just how tiny it was until until I got it. And it's called the Osmo Pocket, and you can stick it in your pocket. Well, you really can. The little hard case, which I've fully stickered up now, but the hard case that goes on it, once it's in that, you can totally just sort of slip it in a jeans pocket, and it's fine. So that is the Osmo Pocket. Really great image quality, and then you can do AI tracking. If I double press this button here, whoops, didn't want to press that, press record. If I double press this button, or triple press, it's going to flick the camera around to be pointed at me. The AI tracking on it is good, or the face tracking. So now I've got active track on. If I switch over to this, then it's going to do a really good job of just sort of tracking me. And if I sort of move around, it's going to follow me around. So yeah, really great image quality and tracking as well. Not the most flattering of shots, that is, when I've got it down on the desk looking up at my multiple chins, but there we go. It also works if I put it up there as well. That's a much better angle. So yeah, that is the Osmo Pocket, and yeah, great. So let's take a look where we're up to. This is the stuff they have at maybe that was the Cam Link, I'm not sure. Not the Cam Link, the Decklink Quad 4K, I'm not sure. Hey, Ian, great to see you. If using the E360 Link 2, for example, it should work fine. Oh, yeah, okay. So, yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, that was the answer to the question about using it with the teleprompter. Absolutely. My softbot lighting is rectangular. What can that grid you have over? So the point about the grid there, if I just turn off the AI tracking on my, whoops, don't want to track that either way. If you have a look at my my lighting, this is what we're referring to. So when you are sort of looking straight into the light, you can see the front of the light face there. But as I come around to the side, what you actually see is it's kind of blocking the light, and that's because it's got this mesh on the front, which we call a grid, and it's just a really lightweight thing, but it just sort of helps direct the light basically, or rather, shield the light from going out to the sides. So why is that important? Well, it's not necessary, all of the time at all. But the point about it is that in my setup, I've got these sort of vibrant lights on the back. And if all of the light from my main lights in front of me was kind of spilling over that back wall, then it would completely wash out that colored light that I'd got on the back wall. So the whole point of the grid is just to add a bit more control to the light. So the question then is, you've got those, the soft boxes are rectangular. Depending on what brand they are, you may well still be able to get a grid that is going to fit to them. So again, it depends on what the grid is that what the lights are that you've got. But you may well be able to get a grid that fits over them. Because they're kind of, they have to fit into a certain space. They do tend to be pretty sort of bespoke to that particular brand of light. So yeah, that would be what I would suggest, is check with the manufacturer to see if there's something that will fit into them or cover them. I'm not sure of any sort of like off-brand grids so to fit into a specific light. You will find that things will work across them. So the actual method of that fitting in, for example, this is literally just Velcro around the edge. That's what's holding it in. So you pop up the light and then the grid just pops into it. And I'm sure that, other brands of lights, this is Nanlite that I'm using up here, but other brands of lights would have something similar that's just going to pop in there. But yeah, it just depends on the light, I guess. So let's see. Attenborough has one of those that he brings out in the field. Is that the Osmo Pocket? Does he really? I'm guessing that's what we're talking about. It's always catching up with chat later. I never know the context. I'm assuming that you're talking about the Osmo Pocket rather than a Stream Deck or a Nanlite. So I'm guessing that was what it is. You're using ECAM with a Sony ZV-10. That's, by the way, what I'm using for video capture, and a Rodecaster Pro 2 for audio. Broadcasting to Zoom, my audio and video are not in sync. Do you know what? This is like kind of an ever-present issue that people have is with their audio sync. And there is just an inherent delay that is introduced into your video when it goes through any capture device. So whether that's going through a cam link, or in my case, going through first the Rodecaster video and then potentially through a secondary capture device and into ECAM. Now, ECAM does have a delay, an audio delay feature built in to compensate, which I'm going to say before I go further is not going to solve your thing immediately if you're using the Rodecaster, but I'll just explain it anyway. If you go over to your ECAM settings here, and then go into the audio section. Let me bring it up. Go into the audio section. You'll see that there's this thing here that says mic delay, and it's a delay between the microphone audio and the video by a certain number of frames. Now, depending on the capture device you're using, it may vary, but 4 is what is working for me. And what that means is what ECAM is taking my audio input. In this case, it's coming from my Rodecaster as well. So I'm using the Rodecaster Pro 2. My audio is coming from ECAM, from the Rodecaster and into ECAM, and my video is coming in from wherever it happens to be coming in from. In this case, through the Rodecaster video, in this case, and through a Rode capture card, and then it's just going to delay the audio to bring them back into sync. And in the recording or in the stream, it should be in sync. The problem comes if you are using Zoom, because when you specifically with the Rodecaster, if you're using the Rodecaster video is sending your audio into, sorry, let me not confuse people. The Rodecaster Pro 2 is capturing your microphone, and it now is sending your audio potentially into ECAM, but also into Zoom. Now, ECAM may well be doing a correction of that audio to delay it, to bring it into sync with the video, but the audio that is going into Zoom is not going through that. It's going directly into Zoom from the Rodecaster. So it's kind of a hard one. Technically, the Rodecaster has a function in there to add delay as well. Although from my understanding, that's only affecting what's being captured in a recording in any case. So you can delay the audio in there, but it doesn't appear to be having that same effect of like delaying the audio that's going into Zoom. There is a solution to this though, which is, and it kind of defeats the object in some ways. If you're doing anything with where you want to have full control over your audio into ECAM and into Zoom, so that, like for example, right now, I've got my Zoom backstage is coming into the Rodecaster, and if somebody were to say something, I'd be able to hear it, but it's not going to go through into the broadcast because I'm handling all the audio routing on the Rodecaster itself. But if you're not doing anything like that, and literally all you're using the Rodecaster for is maybe bringing in multiple mics, maybe adding the sound pads or things like that, and it's going into ECAM, and then you're using ECAM to go into Zoom, you can then instead just use the Ecamm Live virtual mic into Zoom instead, and that will include the delay. So that would be the step to completely solve the problem, is you have audio from Rodecaster going into ECAM, and then in ECAM you set the if you're using ECAM for Zoom, let's just go into our ECAM for Zoom settings. In there, what you do is, rather than this manual audio mode, which is the button that was kind of putting it my request, because when they first made ECAM for Zoom, they thought, well, who would want an external mixer now that ECAM can just handle it all? Well, some people would. So, but if you just don't have that one checked, ECAM is going to deal with all of the audio passing into Zoom and the audio passing from Zoom back into ECAM. So that would be the thing to do, and it will completely solve that problem for you, assuming that you've set up your audio delay in here. If you're not sure how to set up your audio delay or not sure what it should be, apart from trial and error, there is another tool that you can go to, which is Michael Forrest Delay Calculator. Michael Forrest is a great guy in the Ecamm Live community, and he made the Video Pencil app, but he also made this thing, which is a delay calculator. So let me just paste that in. That looks like looks like this, and basically all you do is, he explains it in here. All you do is you basically just record a video, do a little clap, and then you record, you upload that to here, drop in your details, and it's going to then tell you what your mic delay should be set to. Really clear instructions here, and it's going to tell you what the mic delay should be set to. So that's a great way to get your mic delay sorted out in Ecamm. So let's see. Oh, and thanks, Rich. I just see you have popped a grid into the chat. That's really helpful. Hey, David. Great to see you, my friend. So there's the audio delay. There's that grid. Just checking in with the chat. I'll tell you what it is. I've got the other chat open. There we go. Right. Well, I'm glad that helped. But yeah, that should solve it for. Assuming, as I say, you don't want to bring the guests in via the Rodecaster as well. Right. Well, feel free to keep on dropping questions and things in the chat as well. I will go back to my list, because I did have a whole list of things that came up during the event as well. So I want to make sure I cover off some of those. I've got about 40 minutes till I go to another meeting, actually. But another one that came up was, I want to buy the Stream Deck, and should they go with the XL or the Plus? And my answer to that is, sorry, the XL, the regular, the Plus, or the, there's various different models, isn't there? And I would say that if you're just going to get like your first Stream Deck, the XL is really quite the best one to go for. And the reason is, you've just got just more buttons, because what happens is, I think people have this idea of what they're going to do with the Stream Deck and the number of actions that they might need. Like, okay, I've got 4 scenes, I want a record button, a pause button, and maybe a couple of controls for Zoom. So I guess I need 10 buttons, so I might go with a 15, and it gives me a few more to play with. Well, the reality is, as soon as you get the Stream Deck, you're going to realize, oh, this isn't just a streaming device. This is like the ultimate productivity device. And so having those extra buttons is really going to help you, to get the most out of it. There are ways that you can manage when you've got different use cases that you're going to have for it, or different pages and things like that. So you can manage with fewer buttons, because you're not just limited to those buttons. They have folders, profiles, and pages to give you like an expansion of it. But nevertheless, just to have so many things on one screen can be really helpful. Now, the Stream Deck Plus, just to show you what I'm talking about here, go back to my little handy camera here. So this is the Stream Deck Plus. What that has is 4 buttons, and then it has some dials. Over here is the Stream Decks, 2 Stream Deck XLs. Those have 32 keys. There is a 15 key one that's basically 5x3, so just that much. And then there's also a little diddy sort of 2x3, so a 6 key one as well. But this just gives you lots of buttons to use. With the Stream Deck Plus, with there only being 4 buttons on there, it feels a lot more limited, although the dials are really helpful. Now, what I have is, I have the Stream Deck Plus. Basically, the buttons are used to change what's shown on here. So if I just press this button, for example, you'll see it changes what's on that device. So if I press this button, it's just completely changed to a completely different set of actions on here. Whereas if I press another button over here, you'll see that the buttons on that second Stream Deck will change again. So I use this one to change what's displayed on the other ones, and then I use the dials for things like zooming in, panning on certain things, or scrubbing along a timeline or whatever in an application. So I use the dials are really helpful. So if I had to recommend, I would say get the XL first. If you were thinking maybe I should invest in 2 Stream Decks, a really great combination is the Stream Deck Plus and the Stream Deck XL, because you can then use this one to change between all your different profiles. You still get the functionality of the dials, but you still got this large space. There is another device which some people still occasionally ask me about, because I made some videos about it, which is called Loop Deck. And do I recommend the Loop Deck? The software on it, to be honest with you, is really not so user-friendly. I used to have a Loop Deck which had basically, I think 15 keys was it, and then it had dials built into it. So, but as soon as the Stream Deck Plus came out with dials, I basically ditched the Loop Deck. So I haven't got one out, those out for a long time. But yeah, my recommendation for Stream Deck XL is the great first option. I'm going over to comments, but I'm reading from my notes because these are from the other day. Let's see. There was another one that came up, which was, I was talking about the rule of thirds. And this is this way that we should think about framing ourselves when we're on the screen, where basically a mistake that people make is people say the camera should be at eye level. And so they make this mistake of putting themselves, like if I can shrink down lower, where their eyes are like right in the center, because they think, well, if the camera needs to be at eye level, then it needs to be in line with my eyes, so I'm going to be basically on the center. What then happens is it kind of looks like you're either sitting on a chair that's too low or peering over the top. There's just way too much headroom at the top. So what we do is we use the rule of thirds, which is just a sort of framing convention, if you like, and you just want to aim for your eyes to be on the sort of third of the way down mark from the top. You can see I'm slightly higher than that, but it's more or less on that line though. And you can be sort of larger or smaller on the screen. So if I was to just click onto this to sort of zoom in slightly, whether or not you're sort of larger on the screen or not, the point is you don't want to be down here because it's going to look like you're too low down. If you aim to get your eyes on that level, and then wherever you are, like however zoomed out you are, basically with that sort of convention, it's still going to look sort of natural on screen. The question though that came up with was, how do I, where did I get it? No, it's, where was it? How would you frame a singer performing live with a piano? Well, the point is just be thinking about like where the eye level is, and this will apply. Like even if somebody's standing up way back at the back there, you still want to aim for that sort of framing. But you'll notice that this guide also has not just the screen split into thirds on the top, but also thirds in the horizontal plane there as well. So and a good thing for that would be, let's say somebody's sitting and playing at a piano like this, and you've got a camera that's sort of coming in slightly at an angle, then maybe the pianist could be, you aim to get their sort of eyes and head sort of at this position, and then the scene is stretching out in front of them. So what you'll notice though, if you are aware of this idea of the rule of thirds, is that you will see that this is how things are quite often framed. If you think about TV newscasters, okay, they're going to traditionally be sort of sitting pretty much centered. You'll notice where their eyes are now if you look at it, but you might see things where it's interviews, where it's cutting back and forth between the guest and the interviewer. Then you're going to see things like this. Maybe they might have like the interviewers framed like this, looking across into space, but that they're looking at the guest, but there might well be this space that they've left to sort of indicate that they're sitting across from somebody, and they are a third of the way in, rather than sort of sitting like that. So that's the thing, is just thinking about the positioning of it. So that was just a question about framing that came up that I thought would be useful to get back to. Coming to lighting, since we were mentioning that, there was one which was, how do you avoid lighting glare when wearing glasses? Well, it all comes down to the positioning of the light, really, because if you think about what a glare is in glasses, it's just the light is reflecting off that, and wherever it's coming from, it's got to bounce off and go off in a different direction. Now, because my lights are higher than me, so if we just go over to this screen here, my lights are basically, this is the key light and the fill light, technically that's what they're called. They're about kind of like 45 degrees off to either side, but they're also slightly elevated. So not quite 45 degrees up, It's more like sort of 15, 20, 30, something like that. That's the sort of elevation that they are. Now, I'm not wearing glasses, but if I was wearing glasses, the light would be coming down here and it would basically be reflecting back down that way. So it would still miss the camera. So usually when people are getting a heavy glare on their glasses from their lights, usually it means that the lights are kind of slightly too low. And bear in mind that, glasses might be slightly concave or convex as well. So, that's going to affect exactly where the light bounces. But generally, it's this thing of the lights being a little bit too low, and so the light's basically just reflecting straight off the glasses and back into the lens there. The best example, the best answer to this was, I always mention this because it really made me laugh at the time, was Bradley Vinson, who is another guy that's in the ECAM community. He's got, I think his channel's called Bradley Teaches. He teaches all these kind of things as well. But somebody asked him once, because he always wears these glasses, and they said, how is it that you're not getting any glare on your glasses? And he kind of took his glasses off and put his fingers through the frames and said, they've got no lenses in. He had his eyes corrected with laser surgery, but the glasses were so much part of his visual brand that he just kept them without the lenses in. So I thought that's another solution that you might want to consider if you want to avoid the glare on the glasses. There was another question as well that came up related to lighting, where I'd showed a demonstration and a diagram of I've got my key light over here on the left, I've got my fill light over on the right. But the point about that is it doesn't actually matter where you've got those. One of them could be on the other side and you could switch them round. Also, this idea of 3-point lighting, some people just have one main light. And so that is another approach. You could just have one big light that's maybe slightly more round to the front. Some people do it like that. Or maybe they just, don't have the fill light, and it's going to give them a much more, a bit more of a dramatic look, because they're basically going to be illuminated from one side and the other side is going to be in shadow. That is a look that people distinctly go for, like turning down the fill light. So actually, which one goes on which side is not really necessarily critically important at all. Let's see. I keep going back to the chat, but there's also some in here. Let me see if there are any others from the chat, and just come back to that whilst we're here. Is there a circular grid? I guess that's relating to Rich's link, so I'm not sure about that. Let me see if I can get this up. I was going to see if I could see one on the Amazon link, but maybe not. I'm going to have to come into it. Whoops, there we go. I'm just trying to get back to my my pop-out chat so I can see what that link was that Rich posted earlier. So with these things where you are buying some other grid. Also, there we go. Let me show you what Rich was showing. This is what Rich was linking to earlier. So that's cool. So there may well be a circular version of that. And depending on what light you've got, I mean, it may be that, you could kind of get one of these to work. Circular softbox grid. See if we can find something. Godox. So depending on the size, I mean, as I say, the actual particular brand, they're probably to a certain extent interchangeable, because I think they pretty much all fit the same way with Velcro inside or whatever. Yeah, and they've got octagonal ones as well. So if you've got a different brand of softbox, you may well just be able to get one that is for a different light, but they seem to be pretty standard sizes, 2 foot, 3 foot softboxes or whatever. So yeah, not sure about that, but that might help. Hey there, great to see you. We plan on going live offering music lessons and wanted to know if we could use external speakers, since we don't really enjoy wearing headphones. Only thing about that is just the audio feeding back into your mic. The problem with it is if you've got big speakers or any speakers and you've got audio coming into the room and then it's feeding back into the microphone and then it's capturing that as well. So your audience, depending on where they are, may well be hearing that feedback. Now, if you have if you're doing your lessons on Zoom, for example, Zoom's background noise removal and echo cancellation is really, really good. So depending on where you're doing your sessions are, if they're on Zoom, then Zoom's echo cancellation should work. You mentioned you're going live, so I'm assuming you mean live streaming. In that case, what you would want to do is go into ECAM and then go into the audio section, and you'll see here where you've got it saying speakers. If you have an actual speakers like MacBook speakers or computer speakers plugged in or whatever, then you'll see that there is this use echo cancellation in there. Or if you've got them plugged like into their headphone socket and then that's going into speakers, or if, as I'm doing, you've got the Rodecaster and then maybe you've got external speakers plugged into the Rodecaster, then you would tick this one here, enable echo cancellation for external speakers. Now what that should do is that should then stop your microphone, any audio that's coming in through the microphone, like from the speakers, from being kind of duplicated and causing that echo. So that would be the thing. Technically, you can do that with, as I say, either echo cancellation in Ecamm's audio preferences or echo cancellation in Zoom. And it's definitely one to be aware of, because it's the thing that like you can't hear the effect of it until you watch the replay back. And I say this with experience because I was a guest on somebody else's live stream a couple of weeks ago, and we did the audio check, and we were coming in on Zoom and using Ecamm for Zoom for. It was a stream on his channel and pulling me into his production, and it all sounded fine on our end. It was only when we watched the stream back or heard the stream that we realised that because he was using speakers and I hadn't realised, because Zoom was blocking it out for me, the audio was actually feeding back into Ecamm on his side, and then there was like people were hearing my voice repeating back. The funny thing was, it was like a 90-minute live stream, and we had people watching live. And it was only in the last 5 minutes that somebody says, I'm hearing a slight reverberation. And when we went back to listen and think like, what was that? It was like literally all the way through. There was my audio sort of crystal clear to like one instance, but then you could also hear my audio coming back through the speakers at a relatively lower volume, but still nevertheless, it was just funny how somebody only sort of mentioned it in the very last moment of the stream. So yeah, that's the thing. It's ideally, if you can use headphones, it's better, but there is echo cancellation built in. But definitely do a test first to just run like a live stream, do it as an unlisted stream, run through your setup, and then just make sure that it really is doing its job at blocking these things out and how it actually sounds. You got the Stream Deck Plus, assuming what you just said, that would be all I'd need. I instantly found out I need the XL. You can totally use the XL, so it's just a case of like, if somebody asks me for my recommendation, then I always recommend the Stream Deck XL because you've got these more buttons. But in actual fact, I'm not saying that this isn't functional, because as you can see, you could have multiple different scenes in Ecamm, for example. So use 2 or 3 of these for switching scenes. You could have another one to record and stop your session, maybe some zoom control. So you can totally have like full control of Ecamm with this single Stream Deck. And then you've got the dials here for other things like adjusting audio levels in Ecamm, or maybe you could use this to sort of scroll between scenes if you're going sequentially through them. So it's still totally functional. It's just that, personally, I prefer the additional number of buttons that this gives me, because and I've gone a bit overboard on my scenes, really more than probably most people need to. But I've got 4 different cameras here, two more cameras for my top down, and this sort of mobile camera is this scene here. Then I've got like different screen shares, some guests, and so on. And I find it just useful to have like all of those buttons at a glance. And so obviously I would only be able to fit 8 of those onto here. So it's not by any stretch that, now you suddenly need to go out and buy something. It's definitely worth using what you've got and working with that, because you have got like the 2-in-1 there. You've got the buttons and the dials. So that is, a plus for the Stream Deck Plus there. I nearly did a Tom Buck pun there. In fact, I think I did. So yeah, you got the Stream Deck Plus. So just reading that one again. Can you talk about the transaction? I have the Godox SL60. What do you mean by that, about the transaction? The Godox SL60. What? If you're just looking for a softbox, are you looking for the whole softbox for it? I'm not sure quite the thing there. So like this, for example, the Godox, this is the grid to go on a 60 centimeter softbox. What did you say there? The Godox. So 60 watt. Whoops. Sorry about the silence as I type and talk. It's not doing it again. Why is that? Why is every time I look down, it's not typing? Let me try that again. Maybe I should talk while I'm doing this. Go Docs. SL, what was it? SL60. SL60 watt. That is the light. So there's another thing with lighting, a term that you would hear, which is this Bowen's mount, and that is this little thing that you've got with the three sort of little things sticking out of it. That's a standard lighting connector, rather, that you will find is common across all brands. There is a smaller version of it as well, but this Bowen's mount, you can see there that it says Bowen's mount. That means that actually any lighting feature, softbox, for example, that has the Bowen's mount would fit on the top of that. So, you know, you could use another brand, but if you look at Godox softbox, for example, then well, let's have a look at this one, because this is a different one. There's the Bowen's mount on the end of that softbox. But if I go to look at this one, for example, which is some completely different brand that I haven't actually heard of, but you can see how it says Bowen's mount there. So you can technically go and buy like another brand of lighting fixture and then put it onto the top of that. So yeah, regardless of the thing, you can put that on there. Whoops, sorry, wrong one. Let me come back to here. Hey, Gary. Do you recall the softbox lights you recommend for restricted studio space? Oh yeah, so this is the one that I've got on order actually. Let me show you this, because these are really cool. What are they called? Amaran Verge Max. Yeah, these are really cool. It is the Amaran Verge Max. Drop the link in, and yeah, so the thing about the regular softboxes, I should have probably got the different color. I should have gone with the black, because you'll be able to see it better on this background. Let's go to this. The thing about this is it's a panel light, so you've obviously seen panel lights before, but the point about it is it's like huge comparatively. So you know, there's Elgato and various other people make panel lights. But this is, there we go, that's black, that's a bit easier to see. But this is just a panel. So this is effectively the same size as my fill light. So my fill light is 60 centimeters, 2 foot. This key light is 90 centimeters or 3 foot in diameter. So the problem is, though, as you can see on this, if you look at the camera, it sort of disappears into the background. It's like a dome shape. So it's almost as deep, if not slightly more, than it is wide. And in fact, if you add on the light fixture to the back, it definitely is. So my key light, for example, it's 90 centimeters, but with the light fitting on the back, it's more like, you know, 1.1, 1.2 meters, something like that. So what this is just a flat panel light that is 60 centimeters in diameter. Now, this one does have a grid as well. So you can get a grid for this, which is, let's see, is it on here? No, I couldn't find it on here. So I've ordered this from a Thai retailer, but the actual grid I got from Amazon itself. So let's go and have a look for that. I'll drop a link to the grid in. It was the Amaran Verge Max grid. Here we go. Yeah. Copy. Just typing it into the chat. Verge Max grid. There we go. So yeah, that's this one here. And yeah, this one actually doesn't use Velcro, unlike the others. It's got these little clips, and then that clips around. But now you've got, like, you know, virtually zero thickness and weight as well. I mean, the actual softboxes themselves are not necessarily that heavy, like when you think about like regular softboxes, but when they're hanging off the front of a light, you know, there's quite a bit of leverage there for them to be hanging over the front. The reason why I'm looking at these is for my downstairs studio, actually. I've got all the design of the studio done, but the actual lighting itself, I'm still sort of playing around with. So I'm getting one of these for testing, and then I'll add some more to the mix. But these could be really useful for space saving in this downstairs studio that I've got, which is basically 4 meters by 6 meters. But I want to be able to walk around in it. But there'll be certain key spots where I want them really well lit. And although these are, you know, slightly smaller than, you know, my main key light here, the fact is, you know, with a few of them mounted strategically and crucially out of the way, it's going to give me a lot more freedom to move around. So yeah. I'm probably going to be going and helping a friend with their set up their studio in a few weeks as well in Thailand, and so I'm kind of testing for them as well, because this would be an ideal solution to not have to have all of the, you know, the bulk of these kind of things. It's all right if you've got a big space to be in, but if you've got a smaller studio space, then these, you know, big traditional lights and soft boxes are a little bit cumbersome to fit in there. So let's see where we're up to. So I'll come back actually to these questions. So I'm glad that was the one, Gary. Let's see. There was another question which came up, which is related to audio. I mentioned at the beginning, which was about the that little feature. Let me just get some of these things off my screen. I've got a meeting in 15 minutes. I don't normally have meetings at this early, but there you go. I talked about this one, which was the audio processing. There was another question there that came in, like, how do you actually monitor your audio? Well, there is that option in the output menu, which is called audio monitor. So you would very rightly assume that, oh yeah, let me just put that out to my headphones and then that's going to do the thing. The problem with that is there's like an inherent delay in it, and it's really, I can hear my voice in my my headphones at the moment because I'm doing my monitoring through the Rodecaster, and it's not quite real time, but it's real time enough that I don't notice there's a delay in it. Whereas the Ecamm audio monitor, there is a very distinct, like, you know, I don't know if it's a second, maybe half a second or something like that, but there's a very real thing in there that makes it really just like, you know, uncomfortable to listen to and to try and speak over. It's really distracting and off-putting. So how do you monitor your audio then? Well, depending on the way that you're bringing your mic into your computer, if you've got a USB mic, I mean, technically this could be taken in over USB, and what you'll see is there is a little headphone socket somewhere, I think there, on the back of it as well. So many USB microphones, if you are using a USB mic, will have a headphone socket on that is for monitoring. And so in that case, what you do is in Ecamm, you set your microphone to be that the microphone you're using, and then you can also select the speaker to be the microphone as well. But it's not sending the audio out of the microphone, it's sending it out of the headphone socket on the back of the microphone. So I'm talking things like, well, this one, the Rode PodMic USB, the Shure MV7, you know, many of these little smaller microphones as well. Another one, the Rode, what's it called? Another Rode USB mic. I can't remember what it's called now, but many USB mics will have this sort of monitoring connection on them. Now, technically what's happening is your audio is going from the mic into Ecamm, and Ecamm is sending everything except the microphone back to you in the you know, to the mic. But the mic then, with its onboard processing or whatever it's doing, is then sort of including in that the monitoring of your microphone. The other way to do it though is the something, if you've got an external interface like the Rodecaster Pro 2, the Rodecaster Duo, or the, you know, the Rodecaster Range, or even if it's you know, some other thing like the Elgato Wave hub, which Elgato Wave, what's it called? The Elgato Wave interface, so you can plug an XLR mic into it. That'll have a microphone out as well. So using either monitoring with something like that as well, that gives you the monitoring to be able to hear what's going on. And some people don't like to hear their own voice back, quite understandably. It kind of does sound weird. And like when you first start getting used to the idea of you're speaking, but you can hear yourself in your ears, it is a little bit odd to begin with, I'll have to say. But you very quickly get used to it. And the reason why it's important is because the whole point of monitoring is you want to hear the voice, the the volume of you relative to everything else in the production. Now, right now, obviously, there's only my voice. It's not like I'm playing music, so I don't need to know like how my level's relative to anything else. I'm not bringing any guests in, so I don't need to know like the relative volume of those. But that's why we wear in-ear monitors, is to monitor the audio, and that includes all the audio in the production, including ourselves. So, but you do really get used to it, and to the point where, like, me talking now just sounds really odd to me to be speaking without getting that that monitoring. When you go into a Zoom call or something, obviously you're listening to the audio coming back from the guest as well, but then you want to monitor yours to know like how is my level relative to theirs as well. So yeah, that's the way to do that though. So just coming back to this question, another one from the chat as well, David. Can you talk about the way you post links on screen when you put overlays on screen, rather? How do you post links into the chat when you put overlays onto the production? An example with this would be somebody asked a question during the session in the chat, and I only saw it afterwards when I went back and read them because it didn't have a Q colon, so I didn't see it. But somebody said, "I wish there was a service where someone would come and help me get it all set up. So much to learn and hard while running all of the business and so on." Well, the point of this is I absolutely am available for consultations. So you can book a consultation at takeonetech.io/consultation. And that was a perfect example there of, we've got a call to action that came up on screen. And what you will have seen if you're watching on the live stream is that there's also just been a link that has just been immediately posted at exactly the same time into the chat as well, saying book a call with me. So I'll just show you how that was done. And this may well have to be, I could keep going through. I've still got more questions to go through, actually. But as I say, I've been going for nearly 2 hours, and I've got a meeting in now 10 minutes. Let me just open this, though. Let me show you how that was done in Stream Deck. So come to this scene over here. Whoops. I just realized I need to just quickly change that screen share setting to change to this. There we go. Right, so I've got my Stream Deck here, and what I did was I created a multi-action in Stream Deck. So create multi-action, and in the multi-action we want to play an animation. So over in ECAM, if we just go back over to ECAM for a moment, I've got this folder that's called CTAs, calls to action. And in there, I've got a series of different animations. So one of them is that one we just saw, which was something. That's my little notification just popping in. This one here. So that says book a call. I've got other ones. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe. But those are just all little calls to action that are little animations. So then what I've done is back over in Stream Deck, we want to do a couple of things. So go into the ECAM plugin, and we're going to go to play animation. And then from the play animation window, it's going to bring up all of the little animations that you've got in your overlays. So in this case, it was consultation. So that's going to play that little consultation animation. The next thing then is there is an option in here which is post comment. So this is again still in the Ecamm Live plugin, and we've got this post comment. Where's it gone? Here. And here you can actually write the comment that you want to type. So I could say book a, whoops, if I can spell, I can never type and talk, book a call, and then I can put my consultation link in there using text expander there to just fill it out. But now I've got this text that says book a call, and then I've got my link. So I've created the message in there, and then we've got a link to play the animation. So the effect of that is if I actually just press that button now, what you'll see is it's going to pop up, and then it will also post that message again into the chat, the one that we've just created. So that is the process for doing that. That's the process for doing that thing where you activate an animation and you also post a comment. Let's see. There was one other one that I didn't get to. Well, there's still quite plenty of more actually, but there's one more I'll just quickly answer, which was, can you rename the cameras in Ecamm? And unfortunately, no, you're sort of stuck with what the computer names them. So the cameras will all have a name. If you go to all sources, you'll see the name as it appears. So OBSBot Tiny 2, OBSBot Tiny 2 Lite, then they're going to appear there. What you can do though, and I recommend doing in any case, is using this AB camera switcher. The point of that is you create your scenes using a placeholder camera, so either A, B, C, D, or whatever. The reason why that's a best practice to get into though is, let's say you've created a whole load of scenes like this one here. It's got my main camera. I've got another one, which was that screen share. That's also using like what I call my main camera. In actual fact, if we look, it's camera A. And then back in that other scene, it's also camera A. Now, why is that useful? Well, let's say at some point you change out your camera and you want to use a different camera for your main camera. Let's say I'm going to use my OBSBot over here as my main camera. Well, I can just come into the camera switcher, and then where it says camera A or B, I could just go to this one here, the OBSBot Tiny 2, and go to preset 1. And now that becomes my main camera. But that means also if I switch over to my screen sharing scene, then that's also my camera in there. So it means it's really easy to sort of update which camera you are using for which at any given time. It's also useful if you are creating profiles that you want to share with somebody, then it's an easy way to sort of create your profiles, and then you just send it over to them and say, right, camera A is your main camera, camera B is your top-down camera, camera C is your side angle or whatever. You've created all the scenes, and then they just sort of select which camera is which, and it propagates through all of those scenes for you. And so thank you for bringing this to my attention. Yeah, this is a very good thing to talk about. Can I talk about my Master Ecamm Live in 2 weeks course? I suppose I should mention, given that we've done a 2-hour live stream all about Ecamm, I do have a free course about Ecamm called the Ecamm Live Masterclass, which is kind of learn on demand. But I know that people like to learn from with others in a live cohort style experience. So I do have what is called the Ecamm Live Accelerator. Let me see if I can just type this in for you. And this is happening next week, and it's for 2 weeks. And yeah, it's called the Ecamm Live Accelerator. There are 2 sessions every day. One of them is going to be at basically 10 p.m. The time that this live stream was every day in Eastern. And then the other one is going to be 8 a.m. And the reason for that is I'm basically doing them at 9 a.m. my time and 7 p.m. my time. So but the point is there's 2 sessions and you choose which one you want to attend, or you can just come to both of the sessions every day. If you attended the Ecamm Live No Editing Required workshop that I talked about last week, then you will have hopefully been on the Zoom session, which was the final day. So unlike that workshop, which was basically a YouTube live stream every day and then one Zoom Q&A, the Ecamm Live Accelerator is every day on Zoom. So it's a live interactive thing where you get to ask your questions in real time, and there's some instruction and then some Q&A and whatever. And I've basically split the week into 2. So we've got Foundations of Ecamm on week 1, and then basically putting it into practice on week 2. So week 1 is all about basically building out your scenes, getting set up with Ecamm, designing your production, mastering screen sharing in various different ways, delivering presentations through Ecamm. We covered this in like a little bit of detail in the session that I did last week on Ecamm's channel, but this is basically going into more depth, like a day dedicated to each of these different aspects. And then on Friday, we talk about how to get more set up with Stream Deck with Ecamm as well. So once you understand, and we talked about this idea of you are a live production expert, with Ecamm, you are a live producer switching scenes. Well, that's all kind of common, whatever you're using it for. So that's what week 1's about, really, is about getting Ecamm set up so that you can be ready to put it into practice. And that's what we will move on into in week 2, where it's putting that into practice. Whether you are on Monday, we're going to talk in more depth about recording and how to get up for recording, 1-take videos or courses or whatever you're creating. Day 2 is then moving on to live streaming. So there are some nuances related specifically to live streaming. We cover that on week 2. Week 3, not week 2. Day 2 of week 2. Day 3, Wednesday, we talk about online meetings, using Ecamm for Zoom and the other meeting platforms as well. Thursday is about hosting successful events. So if you may have seen earlier on this year, I hosted the Digital Stage Summit, which was a 3-day event, 11 hours a day with 33 speakers, and I ran it all from ECAM, just from my little studio. So we'll be talking about using ECAM for events. And then Friday will be about execution and putting it into practice and overcoming barriers and so on. So, maybe some of the psychological or technical hurdles of actually just, doing the thing afterwards. So that's what the sort of overview of the 2 weeks is like. But then you also get access to the Digital Stage community as well, the Digital Stage network. And that's a community space that is, we've got about 510, I think, at last count, members in there. So it's a really closed, sort of tight community of people who are just using video in their business. So when you go into the community, it looks something like this. And then we've just got dedicated channels for ECAM and things like that. By the way, every time I go live on YouTube, it's live streamed. We start off on Zoom as well. So we've got a Zoom session running in the background. You get access to that. Like going forward, you basically get lifetime access to the network. So that means you can come and hang out in the backstage whenever we do those things as well. So that is the Digital Stage Accelerator. It's $197 for the 2 weeks. You get lifetime access to the replays, of course, and you get lifetime access to the Digital Stage network, which up until now has been like a real closed community that's just been for Academy members, and it was available as a sort of paid community as well. But I'm opening it up to people who join the Accelerator too. So that is what the program is. Thank you, Sir Darryl, for asking me that, because I almost forgot to mention it. With that said, I've got now 2 minutes to end the stream and get off onto my my next meeting of the day. So thank you so much for being here. If I didn't get round to your question, feel free to drop it into the comments. I'll probably have to do another one of these because I've still got a list of comments that came up from the original workshop last week as well. I hope that's been helpful though, and I look forward to seeing you in the ECAM community or in this community around the place very soon. Take care for now, and I'll see you all next time. I'll go ahead and leave a link after the stream's finished at some point to some of my other ECAM content over here. Take care, and I'll see you soon.